Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Well, week number one continues tonight and tomorrow. And so far, week number one in college football has reminded me of week number one in high school football, because week number one in high school football, we had a lot of games that were either postponed, canceled, or cut short because of bad weather. And last night, on night number one, in week number one of college football, there was a couple of games that were either interrupted or had to start late because of weather. The NC State Western Carolina game that was originally scheduled for 7 o'clock Eastern ended up starting at 7:30, and the North Carolina Minnesota game that was originally scheduled for 8 o'clock ended up starting at 9 o'clock because of bad weather. If you're new to the channel, I try my best not to come on here and review 20 games in 10 videos. I try my best to, at the end of each college football week, review all the games that are worth talking about. And there's a couple of games from last night that are worth talking about that I will talk about coming up later on, either on Sunday or Monday, because since it is week number one, of course, it goes all the way until Monday night. So it could be Sunday, could be Monday, could be Tuesday when I review all the games that are worth talking about from week number one. But what's on tap for tonight and tomorrow, we'll find out in a couple of minutes. Let me give a quick Braves update, because I have not talked Braves in a while, but we're coming down to the end of the regular season. After last night, there's 28 games to go, so the regular season is almost over with. The Braves have played like absolute dog doo-doo all year long until the last week and a half. They're finally starting to play good. They lost last night, game number one of a 4-game series against the Phillies, who are going to win the division. But going into last night, the Braves 13 games above 500 for the first time, I believe, all year long, or at least since early in the season. For a while, I thought the Braves would be lucky to win 85 games. They've played so good lately, they might win 90 games now. They're not going to catch the Phillies in the division, but I think they'll make the playoffs as either the second or third wild card team pretty comfortably. But if they can keep playing the way they've played the last week and a half and keep hitting the ball they are right now, they might make some noise in the playoffs. But as far as tonight goes, there's 8 or 9 games on tap in college football, but honestly, really, truly, I don't think any of them are worth even talking about, with the exception of maybe Stanford and TCU. I think Stanford might hang with TCU. Don't know that they'll beat them, but I think they'll hang with them. And if TCU is as bad as I think they're going to be this year, their coach will be on the hot seat. Not saying it's right or wrong, but when you go to the national championship game and now all of a sudden a couple years later you're absolute garbage, that's going to fall on the head coach. And they were bad last year, and I think they're going to be bad again this year. And then, of course, tomorrow, all the fun will start at noon. Now, I've already made a video about week number one, but this was probably early August, so maybe not everybody has seen it, so I want to talk about it again. But at noon tomorrow is the game that I think everybody in the country is going to be watching, and that is the ABC game between Clemson and Georgia. Also at noon we have Penn State and West Virginia. That'll be the big noon kickoff on Fox. I actually think West Virginia has a really good shot at pulling off the upset. But if Penn State does win, I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be no blowout. But unless you've got one of those split screens or you record that game, you're not going to see it because almost everybody's going to be watching Clemson and Georgia. Also at noon on the Big Ten Network, we have Illinois State and Iowa. ESPN, we have Virginia Tech and Vanderbilt. And Fox Sports 1 at noon is UConn and Maryland. Then at 3:30, we have Colorado State and Texas on ESPN. Miami and Florida on ABC. Florida International and Indiana on the Big Ten Network. And UTEP versus Nebraska on Fox. North Dakota and Iowa State on Fox Sports 1. Ohio and Syracuse on the ACC Network. Miami of Ohio and Northwestern on the Big Ten Network. Then at 4:15 on the SEC Network, we have Old Dominion and South Carolina. 6:30 on the CW, we have Idaho State and Oregon State. 7 o'clock on ESPN, Western Kentucky and Alabama. 7 o'clock on Fox Sports 1, UNLV and Houston. 7:30 on the Big Ten Network, Idaho and Oregon. It still sounds funny saying that Oregon's going to be on the Big Ten Network. 7:30 on Peacock, Fresno State and Michigan. 7:45 on the SEC Network, Southern Miss and Kentucky. 8 o'clock on the ACC Network, Georgia State and Georgia Tech. Then the late games for everybody on the East Coast. 10:30 on ESPN, New Mexico and Arizona. 10:30 on Fox Sports 1, Wyoming and Arizona State. And 11 o'clock on the Big Ten Network, Weber State and Washington. And of course, there's games on Sunday as well and Monday, and I will talk about those games coming up later on in the weekend. Got to tell a real quick, funny story. Just goes to show how people talk sometimes without thinking, which is a lot of times why I don't talk sports to people, because people get too emotionally invested and they just talk nonsense. Most fans, if you like a team, every time you win a game, you're never going to lose again, and every time you lose a game, you're never going to win again. But I was talking to a friend of mine a few weeks back, and I was telling him how, you might as well get ready, because having to pay to watch college football is coming down the tube. It's going to happen. And the conversation got brought up because I've been telling this same person for 3 years that expanding the playoffs was a terrible idea, and all this conference realignment is a terrible idea. And of course, the whole entire time I was wrong, he was right. Now he realizes that I was right the entire time. I told him, it's easier to see things if you just look at them logically and you don't get over the top emotionally invested, because then all of a sudden that skews your way of thinking. And I told him, I said, look, you've already got Peacock. That's a streaming service. You've already got Paramount. That's a streaming service. You've already got the SEC Network Plus. You've already got ESPN Plus. And the diehards are paying extra money to watch the games on those channels, even though typically most of the time the games on those channels aren't worth watching. And I said, if you're crazy if you think that people will pay $5, $6, $7 extra dollars to watch a nothing game on ESPN Plus, but they won't pay $5 or $6 extra to watch their team. We're fixing to go back in the near future, the next 4 to 5 years, to the way it used to be. If you've ever paid attention to the Clemson Tiger Paw, it's not straight up and down. It's facing at 1 o'clock. And if you ever see somebody that's got a Tiger Paw, on their shirt, on their hat, on their car, whatever, if it's straight up and down, it's not the real thing. The real Tiger Paws are facing at 1 o'clock. And that's because back in the day, before football started coming on every channel, the only game on was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you played at 1 o'clock and you were on national television, that means either you had a really good team or you were playing somebody that was really good. So on Saturdays, you wanted to play at 1 o'clock. And that's kind of the path we're going down. I don't think the games are going to be at 1 o'clock, and there will be more than one game on. But I don't think you're going to see 15 networks carrying football. It's going to be like the NFL. There'll probably be a game on ESPN. There'll be a game on Fox Sports 1 and maybe Fox. And that'll be it. And you're either going to have to watch those games or you're going to have to pay $5 or $6 every week to watch your team play. And people are going to be willing to pay that because they want to watch their team play. But I bring that up because I was telling this friend about that, and he said, well, when I got to start paying to watch college football, I'll quit watching. I said, you're already paying. Don't you have cable or satellite? Well, yeah, I do. Well, don't you pay for that? Well, yeah, okay. Well, you're already paying to watch college football. So you can't say you won't pay to watch it when you're already paying to watch it. But of course, he wasn't thinking logically. He was thinking, I'm not going to pay extra. But you ain't got to pay extra. You can have your cable or satellite turned off and just pay $5 or $6 a week to watch your team play. But the problem is, it's kind of like the streaming services. Everybody had their cable or satellite package turned off to get all these streaming services. But by the time you pay $8 or $9 for Amazon, $8 or $9 for Peacock, $8 or $9 for Netflix, $8 or $9 for Hulu, $8 or $9 for Paramount, and whichever ones else there is out there, by the time you pay for all those streaming services, you're paying about the same as you would pay for a cable or satellite package. Well, if you just pay $5 a week to watch your team play, it's fine. But what if your team plays at 8 o'clock Saturday night, but you want to watch a game at noon, and you want to watch a game at 3:30? So you're paying $5 to watch your team, and then you're paying $5 for the noon game, $5 for the 3:30 game. Next thing you know, you're spending $15, $16 every Saturday to watch football. You might as well just keep your cable or satellite turned on. But everybody's going to want to watch their team. But that's the way we're heading. If people are already paying for Peacock and Paramount and all those, you're going to pay extra to watch your team play. And I bring that up because we are heading down that path. That is going to happen. Some weeks your team will be on TV, and some weeks they won't. All depends on who they play, where they play, and what time they play. But it's going to happen sometime down the road. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Birthdays are good for your health. Studies have shown that people who have more birthdays live the longest. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.